Evan Jansen, the show, of course, live broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now, where the whole show is always available on demand on our YouTube channel. Now today, traffic volumes have been peaking on South Africa's roads, with calls for all of us to be patient on our travels. The EFF elected their top 6 without incident over the weekend. We'll look at that a little bit later. Also, we talked to author Terry Bean and close by looking at how the reportage on Madiba has changed over the last 12 months. But first, let's get the day's news from Katrine Miller.
Well, hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Katrine Miller, and let's just take a look at the top stories this morning. We start down under, where a hostage situation has been underway for several hours. Australian police have established contact with a gunman holding several hostages in a Sydney cafe. Earlier this morning, hostages were shown running out of the cafe. Footage shown on Australia Channel 7 showed a number of people leaving the Lynn cafe as armed police moved closer to the door. An armed assailant is holding an unknown number of hostages inside the cafe, with local television showing some being forced to hold up a black flag with white Arabic writing in the wall.
Themselves. Australia is a peaceful, open and generous society. Nothing should ever change that, and that's why I would urge all Australians today to go about their business as usual.
Back in South Africa, Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba is today expected to visit the Beitbridge port of entry between South Africa and Zimbabwe in Limpopo to inspect the movement of travellers and the processing of their documents. Beitbridge is one of the busiest border posts in the country. Traffic volumes on the N1 and R101 from Pretoria to the border increased significantly over the weekend.
We are aware that there are many people who abuse the system who will be coming forward during this period with their Christmas groceries, with their Christmas gifts, who will submit themselves at Lindela Repatriation Center with the expectation that we are going to give them free transport, repatriating them back to their homes.
The EFF elected its top 6 unopposed in the early hours of this morning. The party is holding its inaugural elective conference in Bloemfontein. Julius Malema retained his position as party president. Floyd Shivambu was elected deputy president. Darling Mpofu as national chairperson. Godrich Gardi as secretary general. Giwe Khlope as his deputy, and Macklin Musami as treasurer.
If these people can kill their own members because of tenders and control of state resources, they have potential to kill the real alternative, which will take away their ill-gotten wealth and access to resources.
President Jacob Zuma has congratulated the reigning Miss South Africa, Rolene Strauss, on being crowned Miss World 2014. He says she has earned the prestigious title after months of hard work and has demonstrated the capability of South Africans to shine on the world stage. She took the Miss World title at a glittering ceremony in London last night. The 4th-year medical student at the University of the Free State has become the 3rd South African to come out on tops at the pageant. And it's been a proudly South African weekend in sport as well. The Blitzbokke defended their title on home soil by beating current series holders in New Zealand 26-17 in the 3rd round of the World 7 Circuit. The South Africans' first try was scored by Phil Snyman. Last season, they squared off in the final, and this year the Port Elizabeth crowd was treated with more on the same, as New Zealand and the battled it out at the Nelson Mandela Stadium in Port Elizabeth. Well, remember, all those top stories are available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can then also always follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katrine. We've got a slight technical hitch right now. We're going to take a short break, fix it, come back and carry on with our programming today. We're dealing very much with traffic and, of course, a little bit later, the EFF. But let's take a quick break, fix our problem and come back.
Enjoy your PlayStation 4 games on your smartphone with PS4 Remote Play. Don't settle for good, demand great. The new Sony Xperia Z3 series.
Demand great and get the waterproof Sony Xperia Z3 compact smartphone with a 4.6-inch display for only 449 Rand per month on a Smart Small contract this summer. Vodacom. Power to you.
You're back with Newsroom and we're good to go. Top story, traffic volumes are expected to increase significantly during the festive season as thousands of South Africans head to their various holiday destinations or go home. Schools officially closed last week and many workers and workplaces are expected to stop production for the festive season by the end of this coming week. Tomorrow is also a public holiday and many will use the opportunity to travel. Major routes will experience high traffic volumes associated with high rates of accidents and death on the roads, especially this time of the year. The 2013 death toll was 1,376, and traffic officials are looking for an improved performance for 2014. Now, to talk about road safety during this time of the season, well, we are joined by the Chief Executive Officer of the Road Traffic Management Corporation, Advocate Makosini Msibi. And also joining us from the taxi organization, that's the South African National Taxi Council, Santako, we have Chief Strategic Manager, Bafana Magagula. Very good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you and the viewers home.
Mr. Msibi, maybe I should start with you and put this to you. South Africa is known as one of the most dangerous countries in which to drive, according to studies. Is that the right assessment, according to you, and how do you view that?
Mr. Nelson, let me start by saying today perhaps we are proud as South Africans and congratulate the Miss World, Rolling Strauss. And I think I'm raising this simply because we want to learn from her. It is not correct that South Africa is one of the worst countries. Taking into account the population, taking into account the number of drivers that we're having, and indeed in relation to what is really happening on the carnages on our roads. However, we are the first to admit that one death, it's a death too many in our countries. But we have put a number of issues to deal with the road carnages on our roads, and we're happy that we might be seeing the improvement depending on the behavior of our road users, pedestrians, public transport, and everybody, because road safety, it's everybody's responsibility in South Africa.
Mr. Magagula, you work in the taxi industry, and things have changed quite a bit within the industry in the last period of time. How do you view the season? How do you view this time? And what's your message to the drivers who will have so many lives in their hands?
Thank you very much, Eben. And starting from the good news about our Miss World, that's good news, and we hope people take that and plus it with the Madiba's life celebration and say, let's do it for these two people who are making us proud, and other celebrants that are making us proud in football and everywhere. Working together as Santako on our program Hlokomela, which is a program that concentrates on road safety and working together with the government's agencies, RTMC, RAF and ARTO and other traffic-related law enforcers, and also our academy contributing to making sure that the roads become safer. We understand ourselves very well that we're handling a lot of South Africa's population are rely on our transport to get to their destinations. And Based on that, we are doing the best we can. Hence, we're working closer. The Chief Executive Officer, Mawam Sibi, next to me here, is bear testimony to that, and the Minister of Transport bear testimony to that. That as a taxi industry, we encourage and we make sure we discourage the drivers that get behind the steering not ready. In other words, getting drunk behind the steering, and we encourage that passengers report incidents of that nature.
One of the issues, Mr. Msibi, that often falls on deaf ears in South Africa is safety belts. We all ask every year, but it seems people don't really care. I want us to look at a video now, and after that I would like you to comment on it and give us an opinion. Johan, can we look at the safety belt video, please? Of course, you know this was the incident in Cape Town where a young man, an actor, lost his life, was flung out of a car, and you can see that there were no safety belts being used during this incident. Unfortunately, the young man lost his life. Talk to us about how you communicate this message and how you view that kind of incident.
Even we are the first not to admit in our country that we have to take the responsibility of our own lives. As the RTMC and as the Department of Transport, we have made all endeavors to communicate, to mobilize, and to conscientize people on the responsible behavior on our roads. The issue of the seat belts, it's not the only issue that we should be focusing on. There are a number of issues that we're supposed to focus on. We have issued a pamphlet and a booklet where we give all the hints as to how people should then they should be behaving themselves. Let me deal with them in seriatim. One of the key issues is the seat belt. The second issue that we talked about is people texting while they're driving. It's fatigue. Remember, everybody's excited, they're going on holiday, but also fatigue takes its own toll. It's speeding, overtaking at the place where it's not safe to do so, the roadworthiness of the vehicle. We always ask all owners of vehicles to do a pre-inspection before you leave. Whether your brakes are fine, whether your tires are in good condition, your steering wheel, your tie rod ends, because those are the issues collectively that makes the vehicle to be very, very safe. But above all, we want also to deal with the human element. And the human element, it's indeed your seat belt, whether a person it's in the state of readiness to be behind the steering wheel. People drinking before driving, people not having sufficient sleep before driving. You will know, even yourself, when you have to undertake a trip, you become so excited and overwhelmed. And we have less sleep, and yet you're going to be using the road. But there's another issue that we are not talking to. It's an issue of pedestrians. As we are talking today, the statistics are showing us that the highest number are the pedestrians.
And often under the influence of alcohol.
Jaywalking, being under the influence of alcohol, the manner how you dress, because some of them don't dress in a visual manner where everybody can see them. But another factor that is dominating the space, it's our human settlement, how we build our settlements across the busy roads. In Cape Town, where we have seen this issue of the safety belt, we have seen one of the horrible accidents in the country where people were knocked down by vehicles traveling at about 120 per kilometer, or even worse at 160. But even let's agree, all of us as South Africans, education is paramount. We need to teach our citizens to be responsible citizens and to take road safety into their own hands. We're participating and collaborating with Santiago. Mr. Magagula will know as a strategic chief officer how we are passionate about teaching our country and our citizens on road safety.
Mr. Magagula, I want you to look at the next video. It's a video that's pertinent to your industry, and it's a complaint that people often talk about. We're talking about overloading, the overloading of vehicles. And here we have a clip where somebody, there you have it. Those people are getting into a taxi, and some are traveling home, some are going elsewhere. It's our sisters, it's our mothers, it's our brothers, it's our fathers. How do you view this kind of thing when you block 20, 25 people in a taxi, often traveling 1,000 kilometers with those people within that vehicle? How do you view that kind of incident?
Even, without any doubt, this is completely wrong, unlawful. It is inhuman. We really appeal also to our passengers not to put their lives into danger and allow themselves into a vehicle that is already overloaded.
Yeah.
I think this education need not only to go to drivers and taxi owners, but also the passengers themselves, because it is them who get into that vehicle and say, no, I want to get home. How I sit, I don't care. Now, in most cases, people should understand that the driver that drives the vehicles is not the owner of the vehicles.
Yes.
And remember, some people think that all that money goes to the taxi owner. No, most of that money goes into the pocket of the taxi driver. And surely those passengers, all that is in their mind, they think they will arrive home safely. So we need to give more and more education, that people must understand that when the engineers give certain specifications in terms of the vehicle, they are aware that the capacity that can be carried with a brake system, a steering control system can go up to this much. And when you double, 25 people are almost double the amount. And that vehicle completely, it's a dangerous vehicle on the road. We also appeal to some law enforcement, because in most cases, some law enforcements, when they stop a vehicle of that nature, they just write the driver a ticket and still allow the driver to proceed. A ticket doesn't make that vehicle safe in any way.
Yes,
so we really condemn such instances. It shouldn't be done. And
but
passengers.
the onus in the end is then on the public to not get in these kinds of vehicles. I want to come to you quickly. You mentioned earlier one of the big problems we have on the roads now is texting while driving and cell phone use while driving. In Cape Town, I see they've cracked down on it, and it's come down tremendously. They took people's cell phones away from them if they caught them being on the cell phone or talking on the cell phone. In Johannesburg, we don't have that. On my travels every day here in Johannesburg, I see at least 4 out of 10 vehicles with people on cell phones, texting, talking. Why aren't we cracking down on that kind of thing in a big city like Johannesburg?
Even, there's a point that at some stage we need to acknowledge. We can't have law enforcers for each and every motorist. What is important is self-regulation. We need to teach our people to regulate themselves without the law enforcers. However, let me deal with the question that you are raising. You will know the volumes in Joburg, but we have the law enforcers. We do catch people, but we cannot catch everybody at a particular time.
Yeah.
And if you look at the engineering of our roads, we will also not want to intervene and cause inconvenience where it shouldn't be. However, we're not condoning the situation of cell phone use, and it has become a norm in South Africa that everybody it's on cell phone, is texting, and causing major accidents. If you look at all the accidents, or most of the accidents, either be it N1, N3, it's mostly people texting or people on cell phone. But what is the remedy? That's what is important.
Yeah.
The remedy is to mobilize. And we have the toll-free numbers, so that if you're driving behind a person who's on cell phone, who's texting, please call us on our toll-free numbers, so that we can then send the law enforcers in the areas where they could not have been.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at the busy time, let me go back to the issue that you have spoken to with Mr. Magagula even. On Friday, in Carousel, we arrested one of the vehicles from Zimbabwe with 27 passengers, a 15-seater. The driver doesn't have a driver's license.
Wow.
The vehicle, it's not roadworthy, all the way from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Caught in Carousel.
But
also, if you look at what we people do as passengers, all the vehicles that are distant to Limpopo, to the north, as well as to KZN and Eastern Cape and Northwest, you should look at the trailers that they are pulling. The load and the weight is far above the vehicle itself, what it's allowed to be carried. And why people should wait until the festive season to take the goods back home when they could be taking it during the year. Yeah. So what it says to us, it's more important to plan your trip. Yeah. Let's plan in advance. Let's even if you are going to go on holidays, let's leave timeously. Let's allow to rest about 2 hours after 2 hours, just have a rest, so as to ensure that we are fit and sound to can continue with that trip.
Mr. Magagula, final remarks from you this morning. So just tell us about the hotlines that users of public transport, especially taxis, if they see erratic behavior, if they see unlawful behavior, where can they get in contact with you, and how can they get that message across?
Well, we've got a cell number that is held 24 hours, 073 356 8500. I hope I didn't say it fast enough. And finally, we want to appeal to our passengers. Yeah. Never to risk their lives and allow themselves into an overloaded vehicle. Allow a driver to speed. There's 14 of them in the vehicle and there's only one driver. We give them permission to discipline that driver, not necessarily take law into their hands, but to defend themselves when they see a driver is putting their lives at risk.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Magagula. I'm going to ask you to give that number to our producers. We'll try and put it on our Facebook page, on our Twitter feed, so that people can get to interact over this period with your body. From Santaco, the National Taxi Council, that's Mr. Bafana Magagula, and also from the Road Traffic Management Corporation is Advocate Magosini Msibi. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's hope we have a much safer festive season.
Eben, thanks ever so much. But let's make this clarion call to all the South African citizens. We wish you a very prosperous New Year and a safe Christmas. However, let's all take the responsibility to make our roads safe. Let's do this to South Africa. Let's do this to emulate the Madiba magic. Let's do this to emulate the girl of our own who has made us proud yesterday, Roland Strauss. We thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Now let's go to a developing story now. Developing story in Australia. It is believed now that 5 people have escaped the Lind Cafe in Sydney, where an armed assailant is still holding an unknown number of hostages there inside of that cafe. Local television has shown some of the hostages being forced to hold up a black flag with white Arabic writing in the window of the shop there. We'll keep you updated as this story develops on our platforms throughout the day. We've got a couple of comments in with relation to that at SABC Newsroom, of course, is where we want you to send your comments to us. Khalid Bey says 162,000 plus Muslims that call Sydney home, hoping for the safe release of the hostages. Then they will brace themselves for some backlash. Hashtag there, Sydney Siege. Mary Jane Murray says, hoping the crisis in Sydney ends soon and without injury or worse. Of course, that hostage crisis is happening right now. The Lind Cafe in Sydney. Sydney siege. Seriously, how does a lone gunman control hostages who need a toilet break after 5 hours and himself? Asks Richard Shears. It's very simple if you stand behind the barrel of a gun. Let's now take a quick look at the front pages from around the globe. In the United Kingdom, the Metro is reporting that there is only 48 hours left for campaigners to convince the UK government to continue paying for expensive cancer drugs that are keeping thousands of cancer patients alive there. The Financial Times is looking at an interesting study that shows Britain has embraced internet shopping more than any other major country in the world. We stay in the UK. The Daily Mail Sport is looking at Manchester United, who increased the pressure on Liverpool manager Brendan Rodgers as they capitalise on some poor defending to run out comfortable 3-0 winners at Old Trafford yesterday. Before we go to an ad break, let's just take a quick look at what is happening across the country today. In Bloemfontein, the EFF's elective conference continues at the University of the Free State. I can say it's been incident-free. In Messina, Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba will visit the Bike Bridge port of entry to assess its state of readiness for the next couple of weeks. Down here in the City of Gold, Johannesburg, sentencing of former City of Joburg official Sifiso Handsome Litau, found guilty of selling government-owned stands, will take place today. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back after a short break.
Hello and welcome back to Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just take a look at the top stories this morning. We start down under. Hostages were shown running out of a Sydney cafe at the centre of a siege this morning. Footage shown on Australia Channel 7 shows a small number of people leaving the Lind cafe as armed police moved closer to the door. An armed assailant is holding an unknown number of hostages inside the cafe, with local television showing some being forced to hold up a black flag with white Arabic writing in the window. Back in South Africa, Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba is today expected to visit the Beit Bridge port of entry between South Africa and Zimbabwe in Limpopo to inspect the movement of travellers and the processing of their documents. Beit Bridge is one of the busiest border posts in the country. Traffic volumes on the N1 and R101 from Pretoria to the border increased significantly over the weekend. And President Jacob Zuma has congratulated the reigning Miss South Africa, Rolene Strauss, on being crowned Miss World 2014. He says she has earned the prestigious title after months of hard work and has demonstrated the capability of South Africans to shine on the world stage. She took the Miss World title at a glittering ceremony in London last night. The fourth-year medical student at the University of the Free State has become the third South African to come out on tops at the pageant. I remember all those top stories and more are all available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can then also keep up to date on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, back to you.
All about beauty and brains. Thank you. That's Katrine Milan, not Rolene Strauss. Well, we move on, as we always do here on Newsroom. We're joined today by Terry Bean, the author of the book Connect with a Continent, Understanding Trends Across Africa. Terry has spent the last 2 decades living and working in emerging African markets and has an in-depth knowledge of doing business in Africa. His travels have taken him to amazing corners of the continent now. We're excited to announce next year, Newsroom will be having an inside look into Terry's travels and his life, as he will be tagging us along on his journeys, connecting via a digital diary. But we'll do more of that a little bit later. Terry, welcome. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Connect with the continent. We want to talk to you about your travels and, you know, the stuff that we're going to be doing. But just give us a sort of insight into what you do around the continent and where you've been the last month.
Well, the last 30 days, I've been to Lagos twice, Nairobi. I've been up to Dubai as well. So it's been a pretty busy period leading up to the festive season.
African business, understanding trends across. There you have the cover of Terry's book, of course, Connect with the Continent, understanding key consumer trends. Where are we now?
Well, leading up to the kind of festive season, I think it's quite different depending on where you are in the continent. If you're sort of north of the equator, it's just another week. I think people take a short break and go back to work quite quickly. If you're sort of south of the equator, it's a holiday period. It's summer. So, I mean, much like here in South Africa, people are packing up, they're leaving the cities and they're heading up country for a couple of weeks to spend it with their family.
So the further south you come, the less happens, really. I mean, here in South Africa, nothing will happen for the next month now.
Well, there's some stuff happening in Johannesburg, absolutely nothing happening in Cape Town. So I think the further you go down towards the South Pole, it gets a bit quieter as time goes by.
You mentioned you were in Kenya, Nairobi. You spoke at a conference on mass market communication. Interesting debate on how global brands are battling it out to connect with African youth. Just give us a little insight into that.
So what's been really interesting, and it's been going on for a while now, is that a lot of global brands have come into the continent in various markets and said, this is who we are, this is our brand, you must buy it. And local brands and local consumers have not necessarily engaged with that. There's a big challenge when you're marketing an international brand, and the assumption is everybody wants what you have.
Yeah.
But when you get onto the continent, people are going, no. Don't tell us this is who we should be and how we should look and how we should behave. You need to localize, and you need to engage with us on a more direct fashion. And when you speak to young Africans who are managing these brands in places like Lagos and Nairobi and Addis, they're very frustrated because they're trying to do their jobs, but they're in a position where the sort of the brand Bible, as it's called, is it cannot be changed, and you get a situation where big global companies are not doing as well as they thought they would.
That's very interesting. Now, an interesting development in Lagos was KFC just opened at the airport, and it was the biggest news. Why would that then be?
Well, if you spend time at the airport, and I've been through that airport a lot in the last decade, I mean, not much goes on. And the fact that you can bring in something simple like a franchise like KFC, which is an exceptionally good brand, and open it up in the airport, kind of signals sort of that environment is now open to more international brands kind of engaging in that particular space. And it's quite a big deal. I think it's a great thing for the airport.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign of things to come as well, which is quite good.
I see there's been a little bit of an uproar in Nigeria about African identity, being African versus being Nigerian. What's that conversation about?
So this is an ongoing conversation where people are told that they are African, and as much as they are, there's a very strong sense of national identity, especially in places like Nigeria. So Nigerians are going, no, you don't be telling us how to be African. We know how to be African, and more importantly, we know how to be Nigerian. And Guinness got the thin end of the stick on this one. They released a campaign which was originally called Made of More, and this particular one in Nigeria is called Made of Black. And it didn't go down too well because essentially it was a brand that's not Nigerian telling Nigerians how to be African, and they were like, no, we're Nigerian.
We're Nigerian first. Well, there's nothing wrong with identity. Dubai, though, you've just been to Dubai as well. It's almost Africa HQ in a way now. Would that be accurate?
It is accurate. I mean, it's a strange thing, but it feels that way. I mean, there's an awful lot of global companies that have headquartered their sort of Africa office in Dubai. I mean, it's for a couple of reasons. It's for some practical reasons. It's fairly close to their main markets. It's fairly close to a place like Europe, and it's very accessible to the States.
Yeah.
I think Emirates has done an amazing job in the last 10 years in terms of opening up flight paths and networks through to all the major countries across the continent. And it's a very developed business environment. So although it's not on the continent, it does control a lot of influence, both economically and from a business point of view, across the major markets.
Let's talk about Terry now. We're fortunate that Terry is going to be joining us from January onwards. We're going to do a kind of diary, where in the world is Terry, that kind of thing. Just tell us what your expectation and then also what people can expect up front from you in January when we start with this kind of programming on the show.
Well, I guess even I'm blessed. I spend a lot of time traveling across the continent in some really interesting places, and the nature of my work is I get to spend time with interesting people. And what I've kind of observed, and we kind of made a point about this in the book, is that how people perceive the continent on the outside is not really what goes on the inside. And really, I think the segment that we're going to do is going to be fun. It's going to be fresh. It's going to be insightful, and it's really going to be about sharing the sort of actual kind of hard truths of the market. Unpacking some really interesting stuff. Yeah. We were talking. I was in when I was in Nairobi. I did a short interview with a gentleman who has literally changed the face of street culture and street dance culture in Nairobi. Yeah. And he tells us it's not because the quality of street dance has got any better. It's because of bandwidth and the fact that kids can share their moves and share their stories on YouTube, and others can download it, and that sort of creates competition between places like Mombasa and Kisumu and Nairobi, and young people who would previously not be able to communicate together can now connect.
People look at you, they'll listen to your voice, they think, this guy's not South African. Where do they place Terry? You're Irish, right, Terry?
Absolutely.
Tell us the Irish connection, and then how can Africa use Ireland, you say, as a back door into Europe?
Well, I mean, the Irish connection with Africa is quite deep. I mean, we are colonized people. I mean, we were one of the first countries to be colonized and one of the first to sort of throw off the shackles of colonialism. And it's interesting when people talk about Africa and they talk about the dark continent and all these disastrous things. We used to think they were talking about us, because that's how we were positioned in Europe and across the sort of Western world for a long period of time. So the Irish, we feel very much at home traveling around the continent of Africa. But ironically, I mean, Ireland is a small island nation, 6 million people. It's part of the EU. And it is really on a mission at the moment to extend its sort of relationships in a very much a sort of peer-to-peer basis with different markets and different countries and different people across the continent. We did an interview with one of the Minister Tom Hayes, which we'll show early in January, and he was speaking around how Irish businesses are very keen to partner with African producers. And Ireland's got a great history in agriculture, and Africa is essentially the future breadbasket of the world. So there's a real opportunity to use relationships with Irish companies to leverage into quite a big European market.
Very, very interesting. That's the kind of juice we're going to get from Terry for 2015. We look forward to Terry. Thanks for joining us today, and everyone's now looking forward to the kinds of contributions and to see where in the world Terry will be traveling, and also maybe connect us here in South Africa a little bit better with the continent. Thanks for joining us today, Terry.
Thank you.
That's Terry B, and Terry will join us from January with a sort of digital diary as he's traveling around the continent doing business. And also, how can South Africa maybe tap into that and do business a little bit easier? We move on to the newly crowned Miss World. South Africa's Rolene Strauss has thanked the country and her parents for their support. The South African beauty, who was crowned at a ceremony in London last night, is the first South African to win the title in exactly 40 years. Previous winners are Penny Coolen in 1958 and, of course, Anneline Kriel, who took the crown in 1974. Let's just take a look at last night's crowning moment.
And Miss World 2014 is... South Africa.
Miss World 2014.
Wonderful moment for South Africa. All the best. Of course, I can say that Rolene has been coached by Melinda Bam, who's no stranger to this show on Newsroom, and we'll try and connect with Melinda tomorrow or the next day, try and get her in, and hopefully we'll get Rolene in as soon as he gets back to South Africa for a chat, which will be, of course, a fantastic moment for all of us. Let's take a quick look at what's on Newsroom's Facebook page today. You'll see there that African National Congress Women's League President Angie Motshekga has denied reports that the league is planning to push for a woman president in the next general elections, and said this will take time to achieve. You'll also see President Jacob Zuma has congratulated the reigning Miss South Africa, Rolene Strauss, on being crowned Miss World 2014. You also see that about 100 people are still missing after an overloaded boat capsized in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. All of those stories and a whole lot more on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can also visit sabc.co.za/news for all the latest. Now let's have a quick look at your tweets. We're talking Miss World, Miss South Africa's Miss World on Twitter this morning. There's a lovely picture of Rolene Strauss. She truly is really beautiful. That one from Sandu, who says, congratulations, South Africa's Rolene Strauss. Pick courtesy of People Mag. Miss World honors Ashwarai. There's a lovely picture. Looks a bit photoshopped, that photo. Is that Melinda Bam? That's Melinda, is it? Yeah, it's Melinda. Sorry, Melinda, I didn't say you photoshopped. Jorge Pageant says, Melinda Bam, so proud to have shared this moment with you, Melinda. Yes, Melinda's been in London with her, working very hard behind the scenes to put the final polish on our Miss South Africa, who is now the Miss World. That one from Shalendra Pandey. World at a feat. Miss South Africa, Rolene Strauss, crowned Miss World 2014. Margaret Gardner, of course, a former beauty queen here in South Africa and known globally. Well done, Rolene Strauss. We knew you would do it. So very proud of you. Craig Jacobs, that's a world famous designer. So glad to see that a scary dress didn't stop a real beauty from deservedly snagging the crown. Yes, thank you, Craig Jacobs. Sorry. Yes, thank you very much. Johan tells me we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
You can't have a gut feeling about other people's gut feeling.
Ngaba has continued the tradition of passing stories onto the next generation using a platform that offers stories to a far more greater audience.
Somebody no go unless you tell them to go.
This is what the audiences all over the world knew Fela Kuti for.
Join Musa Mkhalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
Welcome back. The legacy of South Africa's first democratic president has been the subject of much debate since his passing on the 5th of December last year. Research by Media Tenor has shown that despite a nationwide effort of preserving his legacy, media coverage on Madiba has waned quite sharply throughout this year. This according to research compiled by the Media Research Institute. We are joined by Lidine Brown, a researcher from Media Tenor. Very good morning to you, Lidine. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Interesting research. I almost thought this is the kind of thing that's a little bit untangible and unresearchable in a way. But tell us, how did you compile this research and what were the facts that you were working with?
So basically, we looked at the global coverage. So we looked at your global TV stations' coverage on Nelson Mandela. So he's been, the subject for the past year. And surprisingly, research has showed us that volume of coverage on the matter has sort of died down. And this is opposed to, Oscar Pistorius that have generated high volume of coverage and other news-related issues.
So if you look at this graphic that we have on the screen right now, we'll see, of course, with the passing, here it is behind us, with the passing of Madiba in December, of course, there was wire-to-wire coverage all over. Then we see a little spike in February. I don't know what that is. I know the spike in July must be around his birthday, and so forth. But just talk us through that.
Okay, so the spike in February, so this looks at the volume of coverage. Your spike in February that related to the issues that revolved around the Mandela family. Surprisingly enough, the issues that was linked to his family did not affect, the former president. And then, of course, you had his birthday in July. And other than that, surprisingly, leading up, to his one-year anniversary with the death, volume of coverage was significantly low. However, we could see a spike in December month, I'm sure of that. So
it would have picked up quite a bit. Even one could even see that year with us that there was a lot more coverage. But based on your research, I think the question that people out there would like to ask is, are we as a nation, as South Africa, living up to the legacy that is Nelson Mandela 1 year after his death?
Well, I think as South Africa, we have a lot of challenges still laid ahead of us. We're dealing with the parliamentary chaos. We're dealing with Nkandla. So I think it's each and every individual needs to answer that question for himself. Am I living up to the legacy of Nelson Mandela? However, I think slowly but surely we will get there, but it is a struggle, of course.
Based on, from what I read here, there's quite a comparison made between language groups in our country when it comes to looking at Madiba and coverage of Madiba. How and why?
Well, when looking at the different TV stations, surprisingly, your vernacular languages, they seem to uphold, the legacy of Mandela in terms of its coverage compared to ETV News. And surprisingly...
Well, we're not surprised that ETV doesn't cover...
Yes. And I mean, for us, I think it points out the fact that the significance that Nelson Mandela had towards black South Africans, in general, just the fight towards ending apartheid.
So all the SABC news and so forth, the other language news, we cover Mandela. You're talking about blackness in that sort of way. And ETV, of course, they don't care about issues of black South Africans.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily.
Okay. I don't want to turn it into a party political message. But there you saw the stats. ETV doesn't care about African interests. We do. We are SABC News, Africa's news leader. Anyhow, the coverage has dwindled a little bit after the world spotlight's been really focused on us. It's not surprising, but how do you view this?
Well, I think in terms of the global outlook, the world is still paying much attention to us, especially with the Oscar Pistorius trial. And we have been perceived in terms of just based on that one trial as a violent nation, regardless of all these other aspects, regardless of Nelson Mandela. And when his death, when it happened in December 2013, we generated quite positivity. And this was mainly due to him, and Oscar Pistorius came in. And now we're viewed quite negatively.
Well, Lidine, thank you very much for joining us today. That's Lidine Brown, who is a researcher from Media Tenor, and she says ETV doesn't care about African interests. They only look after certain interests in South Africa, unlike us. Thank you, Lidine. I'm only teasing a little bit. From Media Tenor joined us today to talk about this very interesting fact about how coverage has changed over the last year with regards to Madiba, the legacy and so forth. But let's have a final look at our tweets. Of course, it's been a great sporting weekend as well for those of you that watched Miss World last night. Yes, Rolene won. Waza Busuku says, Blitzbokker, Rolene Strauss, we've got the beauty to match the speed. I like that. I love it. Yes, but we have a lot of pace in that Blitzbokker side. Miss Madlingozi said, we are a winning nation. Blitzbokker was on fire last night. And Rolene Strauss did us proud. South Africa, Blitzbokker, Miss World. Yes, please. Spring Chicken says, Brandon Grace, Blitzbokke and Miss World all in one weekend. Proudly South African. Yes, it was a great sporting weekend. To all my Liverpool friends out there, we can still be friends on Facebook. Please just come back. It's been a quiet Monday after your heavy defeat yesterday. I don't know why you feel you can't communicate after a defeat. It's okay. That's where we leave it. Thank you. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. The show repeats at 2 in the afternoon with the rebroadcast then at 5 a.m. the following day. We also stream live, of course, on YouTube at that time, with the show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
Technology is all around us and is improving lives across Africa, like how young Nigerians are connecting to the internet. There are doctors finding new ways to save lives in Cameroon, and the South African public transport system that is now getting Wi-Fi. We have gadgets, apps and loads more, some of which play a big role in Africa's growth. A huge part of this African growth is technological innovation. To find out a bit more about social media and technology news from here in Africa and abroad, join me, Siphumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Let us go to this dollars issue, dollars eventualis and dollars director. What do they actually mean to the ordinary man in the street?
A practical and easy example of dolus eventualis is where two robbers walk into a bank with the intention to rob the bank. They reconcile themselves that should the teller press the panic button, they are going to pull a trigger and kill. So the intention is not to kill, but the intention is basically to rob the bank.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
The shortage of nurses places those nurses who are working under such pressure.
To have one registered nurse looking after a ward full of patients, of over 40 patients, is unreasonable.
But Africa has made tremendous progress. In the year 2012, there were only 50,000 children. 50,000 children too many, but only 50,000 children that died of measles in the whole of Africa, compared to 330,000 in the year 2000.
For all your health issues, join Dr. Sello every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. CAT.
Orange Farm is an underdeveloped formal settlement 50 kilometers south of Gauteng, away from the city lights of Johannesburg. It started as an informal settlement in 1988 and later was formally established in 1990. Coming from a community of shack dwellers who struggle daily to put bread on the table, the desire to have education may appear misplaced. The SABC took time to attend the Johannesburg South Career Day and Expo in this community, with the objective of being an eye-opener to learners in addressing critical and scarce skills that are desperately needed in the country.
We have highlighted the critical and core skills that we require for the SABC to function effectively and efficiently. So these are the kinds of career choices that you can have, in future, and the kind of careers that will also support in terms of bursary accessibility. So if you want to access funds in the SABC for you to study further, you need to make sure that whatever it is that you're applying for is in line with the skills that we have indicated there.
we look at previously disadvantaged communities, because learners in schools that are located in previously disadvantaged communities do not have the facilities and the resources or opportunity to be given proper career guidance. And they are limited in terms of the choices that they can make in their careers. So the SABC is here to share that information. But additional to that, the SABC has a bursary scheme. That bursary scheme, learners are encouraged to apply for.
Previously disadvantaged individuals and people with disabilities stand a great chance of being recipients of the bursary. For more information and application forms regarding this bursary, log on to www.sabc.co.za.
We have been able to also collect data that will be of use in terms of assisting us as the SABC to put specific programs from a talent management perspective that appeal to the youth. Very few people actually know that the SABC offers more than a job, but a space for career, for growth.
There was great excitement and self-discovery in learners who attended this expo, in choosing the career path that they think is suitable to them.
Before I came here, I had too many complications. I couldn't make up my own mind. I can say I found myself and I found the relevant career for me. So the expo was really helping.
I thought it's about acting, but I saw many things, such as they have a faculty for commerce and they have marketing. Jeez, I didn't know that.
Mina ngikhethe camera operation ngoba ngicabanga ukuthi nami nga-operator lapha khona nami baba ama-camera ngiyenzela ku-SABC ngisebenze khona.
I was thinking I could do forensic science or maybe criminology. But after coming here, I've seen that SABC offers a lot of various careers that I can choose, like on-air broadcasting.
I think I'm considering SABC as my employer, and I think I'll be doing the broadcasting when I'm working there at SABC.
This is going to highlight our learners even to take some of the program career serious and see the need of education integrated together with the career of working in variety of places. SABC is indeed reaching out to the community, is indeed reaching out to the needs of the society, and we wish as a community and the school from the Forum of Education, we wish to see more of this program going on and on, SABC engaging all community members, empowering and informing our kids to become the best of the best.
The SABC is currently going on a massive drive in hosting a number of exhibitions across the country with the aim of bringing young and talented people on board to this vibrant organization.
We will be out there in the communities to say, here we are as the SABC, here's the information that we are sharing on careers, as well as educate young people on the career opportunities that they can pursue and the avenues that they can pursue towards achieving a qualification. One does not necessarily have to go through university. FET colleges are a choice, apprenticeship programs are a choice, learnerships are a choice, integrated work place-based learning is also a choice towards the qualification.
Orange Farm Career Expo, spearheaded by the SABC Group Organizational Development Department in partnership with Radio 2000, SABC Education, SABC Foundation, TVOBs, Corporate Communications, SABC Learning and Development, and Stakeholder Relations.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on Monday, the 15th of December 2014. Molweni.